If you were browsing older videos on YouTube, you know, those buried titles where the most recent comment is like 4 years old, you might, out of boredom, scroll through a comments section spanning back a decade or more. And if you look closely at these comments, there is a small, yet possible chance you would encounter a few heated replies directed at an unlinked, grayed out name, at SuperTruth 77. And you'd ignore this little artifact because, after all, who cares about the no longer existent YouTube account of some random guy on the internet? Even if you were to search this name in your browser, you'd be directed to dead video links and removed Twitter pages, janky Kazakh websites, and URLs leading to long-forgotten comment wars on abandoned blogs. And you'd get bored. But if you took the time to dig through this digital junkyard, you would find, well, something crazy. Here's a pro-gun, pro-NRA message board where a thread has been started about a guy in a YouTube video defending himself with a gun. A comment on this video catches the attention of the posters.
Did you catch the comments? This one is a doozy.
My late father faked a robbery at his store for the insurance money 25 years ago. Biggest mistake ever. I recruited 3 of my high school friends to threaten him at knife point and run off with the week's cash takings. It all went as planned until some NRA asshole bystander shot and killed one of them, my buddy Dave. Poor dad got a 5-year sentence. I managed to avoid being charged, while the shooter was let off. We had to move to a different city due to all the hate and never recovered as a family.
Wow, what a chump.
So they hatched this chicken brain scheme to perpetrate insurance fraud, and the NRA bystander is the asshole?
All I can say is good guys 1, bad guys 0.
Wow, the way some people think.
The reaction to this comment is fairly reasonable. They don't feel very bad for the poster, and they find his story bizarre yet believable. The only problem was, every word of it was a lie. And as strange as they thought he was, they had no fucking idea.
Wow, the way some people think. The way some people think. The way some people think. The way some people think.
So, SuperTruth. Who was this guy? Well, that's hard to answer, because I spent 100-odd hours looking into him, and I still have no idea in terms of his name or actual identity. However, as many of you probably figured by now, he was a troll. Specifically, a prolific, long-forgotten internet troll who was most active from late 2010 to early 2013, especially on YouTube. Part of why he is fascinating, at least to me, is his skill and often sense of humor when it came to trolling people. but his internet identity and the scope of his deceptions had layers, and I mean layers, beyond the disturbing, humorous, strange, ridiculous, and inflammatory stories and comments he spread on YouTube. But we'll get to all that. For now, let's focus on his comments. A timeline. SuperTruth pops up on the internet sometime in 2010. Wayback Machine captures of his YouTube date back to early 2011, as do captures of his website, but his YouTube and Facebook accounts, at least, were certainly created in 2010. I suspect his website and LinkedIn were also created around this time. And it's apparent from the earliest comments left on his YouTube page and these 2011 captures that he had, by that point, been busy trolling for a while, and to great effect. Right away, you notice the full Rashomon effect this guy inspired in the comments on his channel, a mixture of awe, revulsion, and glee, and then people still believing whatever story he told them and continuing the argument on his page. Here's a quick sample of the sorts of things people would say to him.
Would you please not use such vulgar language on comments you leave on other people's videos and pages? The last comment I read by you was pornographic and really disgusting. Thank you.
You are a total fucking low-life scumbag. Have you read this shit you post? Not so witty, just offensive.
You know, YouTube has a feature that allows other people to see past comments. What I saw from you was stories. A lot of them, too. Some literally repeating. And most of them are total bullshit. No sane human being would ever let anyone die and just walk away from it like nothing happened besides war.
Dude, I can't stop laughing at your comments. You are like the main character of the world's greatest novel, which has yet to be written. Whoever's writing you is a bit fucked in the head, though. You suck logs. Just an advice, if I were you, I would cut out relationship with your ex-wife's family, including her sexy-ass sister. You are a sick person. You are suffering from mental illness, but that's not as bad as your hate and stupidity. Seriously, how terrible it must be to be you. I love your sense of humor. The killing of your father. I was hysterical reading the comments around Cat Stevens. So funny. You waste of skin. I do believe I've found the source of all trolling. I hope you die! I read one of your comments, brother. I am a minister of God. I understand where you come from. I was a porn addict for many years. You cannot control us. Have you really done porn?
Thank you so much for sharing about your past so candidly in your comment on my video. I hope many people learn from your experiences.
Yeah, good job mentoring your 17-year-old stepdaughter into wanting to sleep with you, sleazeball. Really great job with this channel. The premise for these videos is an entirely new brand of comedy. You can say what SuperTruth is and all, but the only way you make it seem all truth is because you know how to use words. Haha, whoa, your stuff. Haha, whoa, your stuff scared me. Anyway, back to the timeline. I can only find one comment of SuperTruth's dating back to 2010 that is still viewable on the internet. Funnily enough, this comment appears on a now removed YouTube video about another troll of sorts, this one in real life. Basically, according to the video description, a fake sports agent created a fake team of soccer players pretending to represent the country of Togo in an official match against Bahrain. Only after the match was it found out that these players, who played terribly, were not actually the official team from Togo, and the agent representing them had no connection to Togo. And even though this match was an act of fraud, most commenters thought it was kind of funny and were rooting for this fake team of non-pro athletes who got smoked by Bahrain. Many people, of course, just thought it was interesting. SuperTruth, who is clearly still developing his style, takes a different tack. His take is, every single one of those fake Togo players, along with the agent, should be lined up in a full stadium and shot dead. I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but it's the only way to stop this happening again. While only a few replies to this comment survived, they are obviously repulsed by his ideas. At SuperTruth, that is, just shoot the black bastards? Is that what you're saying? Get a grip, mate. They're from Togo, where it is practically impossible to make a living. They got paid by Bahrain to play this match, so say they charged 1 million, for example, each player gets like 70K, and the fake agent/manager take their piece as well. Would you turn it down if you were living in poverty to play an international football match and become rich from it? Think again. And then simply, you should go to those psychiatrists. This little back and forth embodies what I think is one of two types of SuperTruth comments. The terrible take. In these comments, mostly, he would come in with an opinion that was so outlandish or unpopular that people would assume it was honest, but sprung from the mind of someone who was very stupid or very disturbed. I'll explain it this way. If there is a graph of views or takes where the x-axis is the spectrum of opinions from good to bad, and then on the y-axis you have the relative popularity of these takes, there would be popular good takes, popular bad takes, unpopular good takes, and unpopular bad takes. SuperTruth operated almost exclusively in the furthest corner of the bottom left quadrant. These were the fucking unknown unknowns of shit people think. But because people would hear these things and be so thrown off that anyone would think that, it gave them an air of authenticity. It wasn't someone parroting your stock standard bad, controversial, or inflammatory opinion like most troll comments. This was a special snowflake of cognitive malfunction, so bad and so weird that it just had to be real. What's more, he often couched his views in backstories or self-aware acknowledgments that made them seem more genuine. In the Togo comment, for instance, he acknowledges his solution to this problem is harsh, but he says he is trying to stop this from happening again. Often, as we'll see, people tempted to ignore him seem to have been pushed over the edge by these little justifications. Quite often, and incidentally, this is how I stumbled across him, the top comments on videos he commented on would be people slapping down whatever dumb or heinous shit he said. Here's a video by porn star Sasha Grey, on which both of the top comments are in response to SuperTruth. I'm not able to find his original comment, a recurring theme here, but I know from the other comments he called her evil and blamed her for his teenage nephew liking porn. Don't know what his parents are like, but if they have similar views to you, then I'm sure that is part of the reason he has done this, to rebel against their stifling attitudes. Lol, it says on your account you've been in porn movies. Why act like it's evil for your nephew to like porn? Of course, to SuperTruth, such comments were just free advertising. So the bad takes represent some of our protagonist's earliest comments, but they weren't the only thing he did. He also told stories, and we'll talk about how he crafted them later, but basically, these became the most fascinating and disturbing and funny aspect of this guy's trolling career. Anyway, 2011 is when SuperTruth really got cooking, and is, as I said, when I stumbled across him. I found him the same way many others did. I saw him getting a lot of responses to a fucked up comment he left on YouTube. Unfortunately, the vast majority of his comments and the responses to them have been erased, so in many cases I have only his comment with no reaction, or most commonly, just outraged reactions and no original comment. That said, I'll give you guys a quick run through of some of the highlights so you can see what he was like. Last year, my wife left me for some asshole guy. Makes no sense at all. I'm a CEO, he's an office admin douchebag, content to earn $60K a year. At the end of the day, if she wants to waste her time with filth, that's up to her. But I don't want him infecting my kids with his lazy-ass attitude to life. Already, I can see them being less ambitious in school. It's so unfair, and I'm so cut up about it. I'm now in counseling. I don't know why you're mentioning this story here and now, but what I can tell you is two things. One is that you may suck as a CEO, as you could not manage one person. Two, this douchebag could be a better than you, since you evaluate people. If you hire me, I'll promise to beat him up for you. All I need is a $60K salary. At SuperTruth, Well, I would first start by accepting the situation and dealing with both your loss and your very poor attitude to people's dignity and worth as a person. I usually don't single people out online and all that, but I have to make an exception here. Assuming what you say is true and all the facts exist. A comment on the Costa Concordia disaster video. Warning, I am currently engaged as worldwide legal representative for Mr. Francesco Scatino, captain of the Costa Concordia, and as such, must hereby instruct all parties to remove this video from their viewing histories immediately. Similarly, any comments made on this video must be deleted immediately. My client will be
Okay. Or you could simply shove my massive cock down your throat. At SuperTruth, you mad, bro? A thread called Funniest YouTube Comment. I engaged in lots of trash talk when I was a pro fighter. It was great for hyping up fights for fans and selling tickets, but it got out of hand. One time I said an opponent's family were all thieves, pimps, and hoes. I lost the bout, and the next week his entire extended family, 50 plus of them, crashed my sister's wedding, smashing up the hotel and putting the groom in the hospital. My family blamed me for this and made me pay for damages, more than the fight purse. That's when I decided to quit the fight game. That's not funny. That's just sad. Poor guy. Don't know why I found this funny. Suppose I feel sorry for the guy, but he did bring this upon himself. So he wasn't lying about his family being all thieves, crackheads. The other guy just proved him right, to be honest. Joseph Coney died last year, you dumbasses. He's being kept alive propaganda-wise because it allows a highly paid alliance of security consultants and international criminal court lawyers to justify their job. Evidence? Respectfully, please furnish some evidence. Support your claim.
You idiot. Where did you find out he died? That random black girl on YouTube?
Really, buddy? I wonder who told you that. Anyways, you are 100% wrong, my good sir. Joseph Coney,
The best hazing I ever saw was at a neighboring frat house. This skinny guy was hung upside down from his feet over a bath with hands tied behind his back and head and shoulders submerged. Of course he could breathe, but only by increasingly painful and fatiguing contortions. He was like that for over an hour and was convinced he was going to die. At SuperTruth, that's actually somewhat disturbing. That kind of hazing would be against the law. If a frat did that, they would all be arrested. One of my employees successfully sued me for $100K plus after claiming he'd suffered crippling loss of self-esteem due to my comments. A few years ago, my mate went to a Ron Paul book signing, only he played his usual trick on him. He snuck off to the toilet with horribly beaten up. He screamed for help, but my dad said to just leave and not get involved. Legally protect sports stars who accept bribes to throw matches down on the pavement. They then proceeded to smash his kneecaps and feet with his own punishment rituals, including having to wash their dirty backsides. My manager at work blatantly uses the fact that I've appeared in adult films as a stick to beat. At SuperTruth, I'm at a loss for words. If this is true, I think you should send it promptly to the police. You, sir, are the most amazing troll the internet has ever seen. At SuperTruth, that was a stupid comment, made much stupider by the fact you were trying to sound. I've seen your comments on about 90,000 videos. Please tell me you're joking, not okay. Are you sure you're not the one that your son to join a gang? That's a sad thing. That's the most what the fuck? Why post it here? Why would you think that's funny? It's barbaric. Check out your other posts. You just say no, even if he is your uncle. If it goes, why would you post that? Pray your cousin sees the truth and testifies against the copy. That's not what were you doing. My black friends aren't for me too. What's wrong with you? Probably false, but if you invented it, then you fucking genius. So, yeah, I mean, so that's the kind of shit he was saying. It's not good. It's not good. We'll get into the ethics later, but it's not good. Don't say stuff like that. I mean, come on. SuperTruth's comments prove a certain rule of the internet. If you master the authorial voice of internet commenters, you can't convince anyone of anything, but you can more or less convince anyone that you believe anything. You can step in and out of characters and perspectives that come across as real, authentic, because you know how to sell yourself as idiotic or psychotic. Funnily enough, some of the biggest responses SuperTruth seems to have generated, at least among those that remain on the internet, were from stories that the majority of people straight up believed. These are 2 top-rated comments from SuperTruth himself that I guess everyone just bought. Here are the top comments on an Usher music video, as well as other comments below, where people aren't shitting on him, but are instead commenting on details of his story as if it was real. And here are the remnants of a comments section with over a dozen comments directed at SuperTruth, with people congratulating and thanking him on his, honest bloody words, mate. Spot on that is. I just like doing the voice. But they believed him. Same deal with another such comments section with like 20 odd replies directed at him, with people saying they're so sorry about his son's accident, and others even asking what he said, presumably after his account was banned and the story was deleted. The point is, whether you believed him or not, he had a way of taking over a comments section and getting in your head. So, intrigued by one of these fucked up stories or terrible opinions, you would do what a good many people did. What I did. Go on his YouTube channel. And that is where things start to get kind of trippy.
Oh, it's starting to smoke.
Trolling. These days, everyone's doing it. Celebrities.
Katy Perry is Orlando Bloom's #1 troll? The fireworks singer is hilariously poking fun at her fiance yet again.
Media personalities.
And what does Ann Coulter do? I mean, she wants to sell books. I mean, she's a troll. She's a troll.
Yeah, she's totally a troll.
Brands are doing it.
Oh, look, if you guys don't know by now, Wendy's is known for trolling all of its fast food competition on social media. And Dunkin' Donuts decided to join in on the fun by tweeting a picture that said, "Listen to the life-size donut. You don't have to settle for spicy nuggets. Hashtag Dunkin' Spicy Size."
Presidents are getting in on the act.
Hi, everyone.
Back to
on
you
the
now.
eve of Super Tuesday, President Trump once again counter-programming 2020 Democrats, holding a rally in North Carolina and telling his supporters, quote, "We like to troll." The president targeting Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. Watch.
Biden takes his presidential campaign deep into Trump territory with the new troll of the president, meant to reveal Trump as the gold-plated.
And much of this trolling, a by now loose media term, could be placed in the category of harmless teasing. That said, there is still a good amount of trolling out there, originating from all segments of society, that is genuinely designed to piss people off. If anything, that goal is its defining feature. And while it often seems trivial, in a forever hungry attention economy, there is profit to be made and fame to be won pissing off the people with whom you disagree. Particularly in modern politics, a divided society with a low-trust media environment is pretty much destined to be a troll's paradise. For one thing, trolling is a hell of a lot more achievable, and to many, desirable than compromise, which rarely works and often just appears like giving in to the other side. For another, while vows to civility and unity come across as canned and stale, trolling is seen as authentic, as being real. Plus, in an attention economy, if I read the headline, "Someone is nice to someone," it's gonna be like, like I give a fuck. But if I read "someone is mean to someone," and that target is someone I don't like, that's a goddamn click. Moreover, a feature of this modern trolling is increasingly salient. Whatever else it is, it's a public act. In these incidents of trolling, both sides know one is trying to piss off the other.
The troll is not anonymous and is indeed trying to win attention for trolling from a receptive audience. Trolling, in other words, is like a guerrilla marketing campaign for the personal brand. In the net, this means that these days we are inundated with all this very public trolling, sucking up media attention and our own attention with acts of people angering others in order to gain personal, financial, and/or political clout.
But not that long ago, things were very, very different. For one thing, trolling was not done nearly so frequently, nor so publicly, nor indeed respectably. In the past, I don't know, like 10, 15, 20 odd years ago, if you were a respectable person, you had to present yourself as nice, mostly. You certainly wouldn't go around trying to piss people off. And trolls, at least outside of oddballs and showbiz, were not self-proclaimed. They were anonymous, imagined by many as basement dwellers and pariahs, people cast out of public life. True or not, what's more is that trolls rarely intended for their targets on the internet to know who they were, and crucially, did not intend for their targets to know they were being trolled. The whole point was that this was a joke for an audience of one. The troll was his own audience, and the rest of the world was the dupe, the mark, the butt of the joke.
So go ahead and load your tape up. And set the temperature and the time.
I swear some of that context will come back later. But anyway, like most old school trolls, SuperTruth hid his identity. But he didn't just use anonymity, he used layers of fiction. So you get sucked in by SuperTruth's weirdness and end up scrolling through his YouTube channel. There was, of course, his comment history and the channel comments he received to binge. You could, also, page through his videos, all of which seemed largely meant to make people confused and creeped out. I only clicked on a few of these videos back in the day, but they were unsettling. A lot of hurting stuffed animals and videos dubbed therapy or some such. You could, too, get a response from SuperTruth, the only time I really saw him directly engage with anyone. Normally, this came in response to someone calling him a troll and saying they'd looked at his comment history and that he was a loser for spending all this time lying on the internet. To that, he would often insist on his backstory, which was also plastered all over his YouTube page. He was, he said, an officer and continuing patient at a reformatory, a mental hospital, though he wouldn't call it that, and he was engaging in troll therapy. If you had caught him telling conflicting stories to provoke a response, that was because, well, he was engaging in Roger Wyman's therapeutic troll techniques. Here, he would say, look at our website, the Glenmire Reform Trust, if you want to know more. Back in 2011, I clicked on this website. It was fucking nuts. The look you're greeted with when arriving at the GlenmireReformTrust.org landing page is decidedly Web 1.0, homemade and amateurish, the sort of site you would find for blogs and personal pages before they were all hosted on larger platforms or constructed with website builders. Still, this would have been less jarring in 2011, when much of the internet still had a DIY feel, and accordingly, small nonprofits like this could have looked a little goofy. As soon as you go through it though, it's very strange. Keep in mind, this is the landing page of a supposed reformatory, a mental institution, whichever you prefer, and yet it is plastered with these weird graphics of fake timelines based on historical accounts of social movements in the, future. It is long descriptions of these events too, replete with fake photos of fake people involved in fake news stories and fake court cases, often taking place in years that have not yet passed. But again, it is written in the tone of a fairly dry historical account. There is fake information and bios of fake employees who work at fake addresses and fake names of fake officers of the trust who have fake pictures, and there are fake politicians associated with a fake board of trustees, fake accounts of fake therapies such as porn therapy, and of course troll therapy, invented by Roger Wyman, a fake man. All of this, or most of it, we are told is being relayed by Jason Nunn, the person behind SuperTruth, and a former patient and current officer of the Glenmire Reform Trust. Jason, or SuperTruth, trolls because this is a therapy for him. He freely admits that, but it's all part of the Trust's program. It's also Jason, you figure out, who wrote the fake book, Age of Consent, har har, which documents all of this stuff about the Trust as well as these bizarre timelines of the future. And if you're 15-year-old me looking at this stuff, you click around for a few minutes and eventually just think, what is this? It's kind of creepy, but I don't get it. And if you're 26-year-old me, you click around for a few hours and you still think, what is this? I don't get it. I mean, I get it. He says he's not just some troll, he runs some bizarre made-up mental hospital wherein trolling is a therapy. So if you think you caught SuperTruth lying, guess again. It's Jason Nunn and his therapy. There's a whole self-contained backstory, complete with a website. Checkmate. But what's with all this strange timeline stuff? All the fake pictures and bios of fake people and fake court cases, fake maps? Like, why? Most of it isn't even about the Trust. So what is he talking about? And that question stumped me for about 2 months after I started research for this video. I think that question might have led me back to SuperTruth in the first place. What the hell was he doing? I googled his book, Age of Consent, and probably attracted some attention from the internet police. But searching Jason Nunn and Age of Consent just turned up nothing. I mean, the whole website was fake. Surely the book was too. Then one day, still clicking around, I decided to Google the subtitle of the book, and I found an identical description of a book by the same name on Amazon by a Nick Funnell, who has written one other book that's about trolling. Holy shit. First of all, to be clear, these are books written by SuperTruth, or Jason Nunn, or Nick Funnell, or whatever the actual name of this person is. Weirdly though, despite the fact that both books cover some of the same ground as topics on the Glenmire website, especially Age of Consent, which is mentioned repeatedly by name, they are not linked or pictured anywhere on the Glenmire page. No mention of a Nick Funnell or a place to read these books, or really any evidence that they actually exist. It's as though SuperTruth wanted to promote the ideas of the book, but also was paranoid about making any connection between his SuperTruth identity and his work as an author too obvious. Anyway, Age of Consent is a book told through the eyes of a guy, Jason Nunn, of the Glenmire Reform Trust, who frames this as a work of history, authored by himself, of the UK from 2006 to 2026, and covers the rise of an authoritarian social movement he witnessed firsthand. What you read on the Glenmire website is just a stripped-down timeline of these events. At any rate, the events of 2006 to 2026 follow the arc of a dystopian novel wherein the UK becomes a surveillance society, policed not by official authorities or Big Brother, but legally sanctioned bodies of regular people who mete out justice for small behavioral infractions. This group monitors one another and the whole populace because they have become fed up with people behaving poorly, and they, in turn, become Jesuitical and tyrannical in their efforts to stamp out bad behavior. This in turn explains SuperTruth's, or Jason Nunn's, internment at the Glenn Meyer Reformed Trust. He was sent there for his own misbehavior and eventually became a counselor. So if you somehow managed to piece together all these different pieces of information, as I did, the answer to the question, who is SuperTruth, is the online persona of a man confined to and working at a mental health institution of some sort in the UK in the future, which he was sent to for bad behavior, and now engages in sustained trolling as a therapy to rediscover his sense of humor and self-identity. I think. I mean, I don't know. It's nuts. I mean, I guess this makes it like meta fiction, something. I don't know. Here is a description from the one and only review of the book on Amazon. Funnel's book does not rank among the great dystopian novels, such as Orwell's 1984 or Huxley's Brave New World. It does, however, make the reader pause for thought and wonder whether the world portrayed in Age of Consent could come to pass. Perhaps the most fundamental issue which we must face is that of trust. If we cannot, on the whole, trust that our fellow citizens, by and large, behave decently, then all the surveillance in the world won't prevent social collapse. I would second this last comment. First of all, it's not a work of great literature. But second of all, it does raise some important points that certainly are relevant to our times. Of course, the idea that SuperTruth's work should inspire trust in the decency of our fellow man, or any trust whatsoever, is, of course, a little ironic. His other book, Stop Trolling, Start Invigorating, Mastering Social Media Skills, is more like a diagnostic of SuperTruth's past trolling comments and offers something of a tongue-in-cheek explanation of his philosophy. He distinguishes standard trolling, which he loosely defines as targeted harassment and/or use of slurs, basically unoriginal ways of making people mad online, from his invigorating, which he defines as intelligent, provocative, entertaining, and contrarian. By stating opinions not necessarily held by him or her, the invigorator seeks to illuminate the dark corners of others' understanding, revealing all the yawning gaps and shaky premises. Even these defenses seem to be written with a sort of partial insincerity. It's true, SuperTruth did not come across like other trolls, and not only because he was better than most. He did avoid outright bigotry, he never really pushed an agenda, he constantly took contrarian positions, arguing one thing when it was unpopular, and then turning around and arguing the very opposite in the next comment. He documents this practice in particular in the first chapter of the book, showing how he criticizes the Kony 2012 campaign as it picks up steam, and then begins defending it as it collapses, all the while posing as lawyers, officials, members of international NGOs, and employees of Invisible Children. Certainly this was not standard issue trolling, and it avoided some of what he called trolling's, quote, entirely negative, mood-deadening, and unpleasant activity. However, the corollary to this argument, that his invigorating is merely, quote, an intellectually stimulating and rewarding hobby, harmless to others, seems not even to be serious. The rest of the book documents SuperTruth's long history of troll comments, which he divides into different categories based on their themes. These are almost entirely his stories, accompanied here and there with advice for aspiring invigorators. A lot of the advice is like a digital anarchist's cookbook, basically a guide to negative social engineering with tips for lying, manipulating, dividing, attracting negative attention, and disguising one's identity. It kind of seems like an early playbook for spreading fake news. It's bad stuff. And that, as far as authorship, seems to be where he left it. 2 books, each with their own somewhat dangerous ideas, published in 2012. So, whatever happened to SuperTruth? Well, he continued his trolling through 2012, but this year became both his zenith and kind of his last hurrah. He got quite a lot of attention, at least in his own small way. His story shot across the internet, he self-published his 2 books, and he continued making disturbing, absurdist YouTube videos. To catch a predator gone wrong. My neighbor's having loud sex. Mom and dad having loud sex. Brother having sex with boy. Jesus Christ. It's great stuff. But in December of 2012, it appears he was banned from YouTube. The proximate cause? Well, it really could have been anything. But let's be honest, this guy wasn't exactly observing the terms of service. This ban, which I believe occurred in December of 2012, though I'm not positive, forced a shift in SuperTruth's activities, and in my view, a decline in originality and creativity. Basically, bereft of his YouTube account, he switched over entirely to Twitter, his home for the next year and a half. This caused a number of problems. For one thing, unlike old school YouTube, where it was very easy to post a comment on a popular video and get a response, and in some cases where many people got upvoted responding to you, a flood of feedback, Twitter made it hard for people with low follower counts to get attention. As a result, he would have to abuse trending hashtags, especially those that courted controversy. This forced him, for the purposes of attention, to take his act to where the audience was. Toxic, high-volume debates over feminism and men's rights, controversies of the day, and the standard slew of ill-considered takes that proliferate on Twitter. Rather than building his own weird universe and giving others the choice to take the bait, he had to chase after the mob, trying to get his crumbs of attention. For another thing, Twitter really wasn't conducive to stories. Where YouTube had a 500 character limit for comments, Twitter's was 140 at the time. Not enough to spin a yarn. As a result, SuperTruth had to utterly change his tack. He tried boiling things down to little nuggets of controversy far less imaginative than his YouTube tales, but also began linking to stories he posted on his website. And this is where it kind of fell apart. Where his website used to be another rabbit hole of backstory and artistic deceit, in mid-2013 he rebranded parts of it as the page of the, quote, world's finest troll. It functioned as a blog of sorts where he would link to his stories and more or less admit he was just trying to troll you. As a result, far fewer people ever saw his stories, and those who did would quickly realize they were just reading some weird cry for attention from a self-proclaimed internet troll. In short, SuperTruth kind of gave the game away. Beyond these clear drawbacks in his new platform, he seems to have gotten more lazy. There are still flashes of humor and creativity, but he had been courting negative attention for a long time. And despite getting a fair amount of it, in a scattershot way, he hadn't really built up a following. In 2011, of course, that was the point. To get too much attention was to spoil the joke. This was an inside joke for himself. But after putting years into mastering trolling, he clearly wanted a space to advertise his accomplishments. The books and the rebranded blog make that clear enough. But to do this, to actively say, "Look at me, I'm a really good troll," was to hang it up, take off the disguise, and more or less retire. And it seems, by early 2014 or so, before he was banned from Twitter, that's what he was doing. Assuming he had a relatively normal life outside of this hobby, and maybe that's a big assumption, but I suspect this, he would have had a hard time sharing his success as a troll with real people he knew. But if he could just get people to click his link online, maybe strangers could appreciate it and give him validation. That, at this stage, was as much as he could hope for. And when the Twitter ban came, as far as I can tell, SuperTruth was more or less erased entirely.
So I'm going to blend it.
Just a quick note on this final section, guys. I get a little preachy here, so for those of you who just wanted to learn about SuperTruth, I get it if you want to skip this part. And of course, to those of you who do listen, this is just my view. Everything I say has room for disagreement, so feel free to do that in the comments. But anyway, was any of this ethical? Well, not really. I could play devil's advocate on this one, but I don't think SuperTruth was a great guy. Don't get me wrong. As I've said, I found a good deal of what he posted and the reactions he generated funny. But things can be both unethical and humorous. Successful trolling is almost always a bit of both. And to be fair, he could have been a good deal more toxic. Think just hurling bigotry and slurs and waging targeted harassment, and a good deal less funny. Think most lazy trolls you've seen on the internet. But let's be real, those facts still don't make him good. And I bet most of you are like, well, yeah, he was a dick. But maybe some of the more jaded among you will say, well, he was just joking around and he always made himself the bad guy. He wasn't trying to get people to agree with his messed up views. The point was that everyone would attack them. And while that much is true, I would say there are some comments I've not included in the video, and maybe a few I have, in which SuperTruth jokes about and makes light of some subjects that I think even the most edgy among us would not find very funny, and that most people would find pretty twisted. You can search them out for yourself if you don't trust me on this, that's fine, but I'll tell you now. The guy had no boundaries and cared far more about getting negative attention than just about anything else. But my view of the ethical implications of SuperTruth and of trolling more generally hinges less on what I think of his behavior and more on what I've seen change since his heyday. The fact is, in 2012 or so, an internet troll was just that, an asshole online, almost existing in a vacuum. Pretty much everyone agreed they were a dick, and their identity did not really range beyond the computer screen. But as the internet became more all-consuming, more constant, and more a part of IRL, trolling and trolls began to spread into daily life. Where the old school trolls were anonymous, the new ones have names and faces, lives and occupations, and personal brands. What's more, where the trolls of yore, the SuperTruths, had few admirers and did not really try to win any, these new trolls have their fan bases who cheer them on and their punching bags whom they try to enrage. And ironically, in the past, the challenge to the troll was always, come out from behind your keyboard, leave your basement. And by God, they did. Trolls became celebrities and politicians and entertainers and politicians and celebrities became trolls. And sure, in some ways, they can't go as far as SuperTruth. They can't say things that turn everyone against them. But whereas SuperTruth was a dick who knew he was a dick and was not trying to be liked, a purist, these people often behave like assholes while playing to the fucking crowd. and winking at their fan clubs. And there's something kind of slimy about that. But even those of us who aren't trolls, who don't make a career or a habit of trying to start shit online, can't claim little innocence. Well, SuperTruth did not, from what I've seen, have a change of heart or become more moral. The rest of the world, all of us, became more like him, more prone to schadenfreude, lack of empathy, and bullshitting, pot stirring, and manipulating. Because we all, at least sometimes, behave like assholes when we're online. And we're online a lot. So what does that make us? Okay. Being a little long-winded here. One final point. Funnily enough, I've seen at least one or two articles published while I was making this video that argued the complete opposite. That indeed, trolls and the behavior they engage in can be neatly separated from the rest of us normal people. While I thought these pieces were interesting, in my view, they are flatly wrong. They underestimate how much internet culture, in all its toxicity and dishonesty, has infected us all. Trolls exist, but the larger question is not about good and bad people, trolls and non-trolls. Trolling has spread because trolling is a mood, an emotional tool, a lens through which to view the world that warps the moral universe so that being bad is being good, is being cool, is being real, is being funny. And we could be blind to this way of looking at things, this troll vision, when trolling remained the obscure, grungy little hobby of anonymous provocateurs like SuperTruth. But now it's the national, hell, global pastime, and none of us can unsee it.
毛主席的光辉，嘎啦呀是弱弱，照到了雪山上，一拉枪把弱弱照到了雪山上，一拉枪把弱弱山上一拉枪把弱弱，人民领袖毛主席，嘎啦呀西弱弱，祝您满手武将，一拉枪把弱弱祝你满手武将，一拉枪把弱弱